I am a huge Dark Souls fan, and while the single-player campaigns in these games are all great, it was always about the PvP for me. Each time a new Souls game gets released, I jump on, play for a bit, beat a boss or two, and then as soon as possible, I'm trying to figure out how to invade other worlds and start fighting people. The PvP in this series is so unique and so unlike anything really that I've ever experienced anywhere else. So when I first saw footage of For Honor, I was hyped, man. It looked so cool. For starters, it was a multiplayer game. A multiplayer game that wasn't an FPS, that wasn't a watered-down, crappy version of League of Legends or League of Legends. It looked like a new, fresh take on arena-style multiplayer games, and for the most part, it was. But unfortunately, there was this. And while they have made some very good games, they do have a certain reputation. And sadly, many of those things came true with For Honor. Let's start this off by talking about what this game did right, as I feel like it did do a number of things correctly. The characters. Ubisoft did a terrific job with the character design. Each of them feels unique with their own style of how they fight, what their win conditions are, and having a distinct learning curve in how you play each one. One of the things I love is the weight that each of the characters have. The small characters feel quick and fast. The bigger characters feel heavy and slow. You play one of them big boys and you're feeling thick. When you land a hit with Shugoki or Raider, you feel it, and it's satisfying, and I think that's really important. The game itself has a certain clunkiness to it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Take a game like Counter-Strike. The movement in Counter-Strike is weird. It's non-intuitive, it's awkward, and it doesn't feel good to pick up and play right away. But if you learn it, if you learn how to use that weight to your advantage, you learn to counter-step to improve your aim, crouching when you jump to reach higher areas, maybe you go further and learn bunny hopping, and now the game feels really good to play. It feels really satisfying. This is something I think For Honor did pretty well. I like that the heavy characters feel heavy. I like that they have momentum, that they can't stop and go on a dime. The light attacks feel light, and the heavy attacks feel like if I hit this guy, I'm gonna take his fucking head off, and usually that's what happens. It's definitely not perfect. I mean, it's no Melee, but overall, I think the character design and the movement was implemented very well. I mentioned in the intro how I felt that For Honor was a fresh take on arena-style multiplayer games, and again, this is an area that I feel Ubisoft did an amazing job with. I think the design philosophy behind the multiplayer, specifically the game modes, is just such a cool concept. You know, when you think of arena-style multiplayer games, you might think of Quake, Unreal Tournament, or Halo. What makes these games unique when compared to Call of Duty or Overwatch is the focus on map movement. In Counter-Strike, you buy your weapons and armor at the start of each round. In Call of Duty, you pick your class. Sure, you can pick up other equipment during a round, but they're not placed on the map, and each player doesn't start on the same playing field. When you look at Halo, each player starts with the same equipment, save for a couple of Halo games we don't talk about, and the weapons and power-ups are on the map. You become stronger through making smart decisions, locking down overshield or rockets through good positioning and decision-making, rather than because you created a class or picked an overpowered character. This is what For Honor attempted to do, except it wasn't done as an FPS, which is part of the reason why it was so exciting. While the game itself is class-based, there's power-ups on the map with the health buff, the attack buff, and the speed boost. This meant if you were able to control these power-ups through good positioning and decision-making, you'd be stronger. Now, whether these power-ups were implemented correctly or balanced is another topic. But the decision to implement them and to come up with this sort of Street Fighter meets Halo hybrid was a great idea, and I feel like it was executed relatively well. I think there's definite room for improvement, but I also feel like they're kind of defining a new genre with this game, and it might take some time for them to figure out what works. That said, this is another area I feel For Honor was successful in what they set out to accomplish. Now it's time for the rest of the video. I'm not even going to comment on the issues with the networking or the currency system, as all of these things are extremely well known. You might not want to hear some of this, but I think it has to be said. This game has an incredible focus on defensive and reactive play, and outside of some gimmicky stuff, offers very little in terms of offensive and proactive play. Now, you might argue that this isn't a problem, but I would argue that it is. I think it's a major problem. Anyone who likes to play an aggressive playstyle and put pressure on their opponents will quickly find out that they'll be punished for aggression 9 times out of 10, even if they're just playing against a decent player. What's interesting, however, is that when I was playing the beta, it felt like aggression reigned supreme. I was 2v1ing, 3v1ing, throwing people off cliffs left and right, and it felt really good. And then the game came out, and I started to get better. And so did everybody else. And as that happened, I started to notice I can't hit anyone. Not only that, but now it seems like the majority of my attacks just get blocked or parried. Well, that's fine. I can just guard break them, right? Nope. A good player is not going to get hit by a guard break. They just have too much time to react to it. Where I'm going with this and why the video title is what it is that I don't think Ubisoft balanced this game with higher level players in mind. And I'm not just talking about the top 1% of players. These problems seem to exist with like the top 50%. Take a game like Melee. It's easy to draw comparisons to. As you get better at Melee, the game gets better. You can do more things, you can take combos further, you can be more creative. In For Honor, as you get better, the game feels like it gets worse. It feels like I have less options, that I'm forced to be less creative. And if I want to be aggressive, I'm forced to rely on glitches or exploits, rather than on the intended mechanics of the game. There's a couple reasons for this, and one I already sort of mentioned with the guard break system. The other is the way the parry and the combo system function. We'll talk about guard break first because the issue with it is relatively simple. It's too easy to counter. That's really all there is to it. It's far too easy to react to. Let's look at why guard break is implemented. When you compare it to a traditional fighting game, you find that guard breaking is intended to act the same way as a throw would in a game like Street Fighter, for example. If a fighting game is rock, paper, scissors, blocking is rock, paper is throw, and scissors are attack. Someone is sitting there blocking constantly? Well, a throw will counter that. Someone is trying to throw all the time? Attacking counters that. And obviously blocking is meant to counter attacking. In essence, you're given 3 options, and each option has priority over one thing and is weak to another. In For Honor, you're given what feels like 2 options. Attacking and guard breaking, or blocking and counter guard breaking. But hold on, Joey. You just said guard break is like a throw. So how does Street Fighter have 3 options but For Honor only has 2? Well, a throw in Street Fighter V is only able to be countered within 7 frames. Running at 60 FPS, that's about a 1/10 of a second. It's not humanly possible to react that quickly. So teching a throw in Street Fighter is based on reading your opponent, knowing when they're going for a grab based on their movement patterns and their playstyle. For Honor's timing works a bit differently, as it's not based on frames and gives you 2/10 of a second to react. While this isn't a huge increase on 1/10 of a second, this does not include how long your opponent's guard break animation is, which ranges from about 4 to 7/10 of a second. On top of that, you get a giant red indicator to let you know that it's coming. This makes guard break counters reliant on reaction instead of reads, and what happens is the game is no longer rock, paper, scissors, and is now heads or tails. And while this isn't ideal, it still might be okay if the defensive option wasn't so much better than the offensive one. You are punished for attacking in this game. Blocking attacks is one thing, that's a staple of every fighting game and is a reason why they work, but to add parrying on top of it, what incentive do I have to attack if I know you have time to react to it and get a free punish? None. I don't have any. And again, this might be okay if when I landed a hit I could start a combo, but I don't even have that option. Yes, if I land a hit, I'm able to start a combo string. But all that usually leads to is me eventually getting blocked or getting parried or running out of stamina. If it were the case that I knew attacking wasn't that great of an option, but that if I landed a hit I could start a high damage combo, that would be one thing. But it's not like that. And even in this somewhat rare event of the offensive option being successful, the defensive option still wins in the end. In every case I've discussed, the defensive option reigns supreme. This is not the sign of a well-balanced game. Well-balanced games support a variety of playstyles. Look at 3 of the top players in Melee right now. You've got Mango, extremely aggressive. Hungrybox, extremely defensive. And then there's Armada, who seems to fall somewhere in the middle. Each of these playstyles have distinct advantages and disadvantages and can be used to counter each other. With For Honor, the aggressive options don't really seem to counter anything, but seem to be countered by everything. I still believe the developers came up with a great formula for a brand new style of game, and I truly do still think it can work. But I don't think this is something that can be fixed with a patch. These issues have to do with the core fundamentals of gameplay and would require a pretty large overhaul in order to be corrected. Unfortunately, I don't see Ubisoft as the type of developer who would even take that route. If you enjoy the game, please do not let me diminish that for you. If you're an aggressive player and you've found success in this game, that's great. But it hasn't been like that for me. And I have a feeling it hasn't been like that for some other people too. I still believe in this game, and I think it has a chance to turn into something great. But knowing Ubisoft, I think we might be looking at For Honor 2 to see that. Now that I just got done tearing apart a game you possibly enjoy, this is probably as good a time as any to announce that I'm on Patreon. To be honest, the fact that you guys are still watching this lengthy video at this point is support enough, but if you would like to support me further, there's a link in the description, and honestly, it would just blow me away if anyone were to sign up for it. So if you're interested, feel free to check that out, and either way, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Of course, if you agree or disagree with anything I've gone over, leave a comment on YouTube or Reddit, wherever. I read every single comment I receive and would love to discuss things further with you guys. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.